Coco lives in a world of magic and fantastical creatures, where witches are the only people who could use magic, or so they wanted everyone to think. In a world brimming with magic, a young girl named Coco lived with her mother who worked as a fabric dealer. Ever since her birth, she had always been fascinated by the magic in the world, and believed that witches are the coolest people in the world. All she ever wanted to be able to perform magic herself. But she knew that she was dreaming about something impossible, as her mother told her about it multiple times, that witches were born and not made. She was a hard-working girl who took all the fabric to a nearby pond to wash them by hand and make sure that they were perfect for the customer. Even the pond was blessed by a witch, as no matter what, the pond cleaned itself with magic so that humans can use it for washing clothes and even bathing, without corrupting the waters, which were also a life source for the animals living in the area. Coco returns back to her house after washing all the clothes and climbs on top of the roof to dry them out. While pretending to be a witch who knew how to make things fly, she suddenly notices a flying horse carriage right over her. She was delighted to see the magic in the air, but to her surprise and happiness, the carriage started descending near her house. She immediately gets excited and runs down the staircase to find her mom and tell her about it. But when she opens the door, she ends up bumping into a white-haired man who is trying to act like the discount Gojo Satoru. She immediately apologizes to him, and he smiles at her, claiming that it was his fault as he was standing at the wrong place. Before she could reply to anything, she overhears a bunch of women going over the fabric in the store for sale, and discussing how they can't believe that they are getting such amazing fabrics in the middle of nowhere. Her heart fills up with joy as she wonders whether these are the people who came in the flying carriage. But Gojo tells her that he is not with them actually. Coco's mom tells her to stop standing there and help her with the customers. She then turns towards Gojo and asks what he wants. Gojo replies that he is looking for a specific smoke-colored fabric, but tells them that he can come back again if they are busy right now. Coco intervenes and tells him not to worry, as she can help him with the fabric. Gojo is a little surprised since Coco looks pretty young, but her mother tells him not to worry about it as he is in good hands. Coco immediately turns towards her mother and asks whether she can go outside and have a look at the flying carriage once she is done. And her mother immediately reminds her that she is not allowed to mess around with the property of their customers, but she promises that she is only going to look at it from afar and won't even go near. Her mother finally agrees, and Coco happily returns back to Gojo and takes the measurements from him before heading into the back room. She quickly finds the color of fabric that the man needed and lays it on the work desk before getting out her tools as she starts measuring the length of the fabric. She then takes out a wooden pencil dipped in charcoal and marks the end point before calming her breath down and creating a straight line with the charcoal in one go. With that done, she takes out the shears and uses them to cut the fabric perfectly straight in one go without skipping a single beat. She was so engrossed in her job that she didn't even notice that Gojo was standing there the entire time observing her as he picks up the fabric and claims that he is surprised and impressed by the incredible focus and steady hands that she possesses. There was no hesitation in her movements, and her finishing was precise and perfect. He claims that he had no idea that a village like this could be fostering such an incredibly skilled artisan, and calls her work magic. She wonders whether Gojo is trying to take her back to the Epstein's Island and tells him that her job is no magic, and it is just repetitive work. While magic is something pure and shiny, unbelievably beautiful, something so precious that she doesn't think there is any words to define that. Gojo feels the raw passion this girl has for magic, and asks why she loves magic so much, and Coco replies that when she was just a little girl, her mother took her to a festival in the nearby city. Everything was beautiful there, and while following a butterfly, she ended up meeting a masked witch in a back alley. The witch asked her whether she is interested in magic, but back then she didn't really know what it was, so the witch showed her all the things that could be achieved by magic. She was awed by the beauty of the demonstration and immediately agreed to buy the magic book and the wand from the witch. Once she returned back to her mother, she showed her the book, and her mother wondered why she would spend her money on such useless items. Coco, however, was happy with her purchase and still in awe with the magic that she saw from the witch. She then told her mom that once she grows up, she will become a witch and use her magic to make the world a more vibrant place. Her mother, however, replies that what she is dreaming of is not possible, since you can't simply decide to be a witch and use magic. It's a power that you are born with, and unfortunately, it's not something that ordinary people like them can possess. Ever since that day, it had been her dream to be able to use magic, and no matter how much she knows that what she wants is impossible, she simply can't seem to let go of that dream. Gojo seemed interested and was about to speak, when suddenly they heard some voices coming from outside, and Coco immediately rushes out to see what the commotion was about. It turns out that the carriage overturned and fell over, while the driver was still trying to get his horses in control. Coco finds two of his friends on the scene, and they reveal that they were trying to have a closer look. But one of them ended up bumping their head on the carriage, which spooked the horses, and the carriage fell over. The women who the carriage belonged to were furious, claiming that it was their father's carriage. Coco's mother immediately apologized to them from the side of the boys, but the women claimed that her apology can't really fix their carriage, and without a carriage they can't really head back home. Thankfully, Gojo was there and told the women to calm down so he could take a look at the carriage. The women tell him that this is not a simple carriage which a mechanic could fix. It is a magical carriage which her father bought for her on her birthday. Just then, Gojo pulls out a pointed cap from his cape, and immediately the voices from the women change into soft purrs, as they realize that Gojo is not an ordinary person but a witch. The women beg him to have a look at the carriage, and Gojo immediately figures out that the problem is that a simple spell came undone and could be fixed easily. The problem is that he would need some place private to practice the spell, and without a second thought, Coco tells him to use the workshop, hoping that maybe she would be able to accompany him and finally see what casting a spell looks like. Unfortunately for her though, her plans come undone when Gojo tells her to stand guard outside the workshop as no one is allowed to come in. She wonders how magic is always around them, but no one has ever seen a witch perform magic, as the witches keep it as a proper secret which couldn't be known by mere humans. While she was brooding outside the cabin, she hears the sound of the boys once again, who climb on top of the roof in the hopes of peeking inside. But instead of stopping them, Coco ends up joining them, only to find out that the witch had already barred all the windows, so there is no way anyone could see inside. The boys get bored and climb down, but Coco had other ideas. She manages to get into the upper floor and grabs her magic book that she bought when she was young, and realizes that she can actually see inside. At first she tries to follow the instructions, but her curiosity gets the better of her, and she peeks in only to be shocked to see that Gojo wasn't chanting any spells. In fact, he was using his pen to draw something on the wheel of the carriage. That's when she realizes that witches don't cast spells, they draw them into existence. Once Gojo was done, he starts moving outside to call Coco in, forcing Coco to make a run for it. By the time Gojo opens the front door to call Coco in, he finds her dirty and panting. Thankfully, the carriage ended up working properly and the women left. By the time evening fell, they were done with all the customers, and her mother turned towards her, claiming that she was a little scared that she would want to go off with that witch, and ever since losing her father to the disease, Coco is the only thing she has in this world, which she can't bear to lose. Coco replies that she would never leave her and hugs her tightly, before returning back home to have some warm dinner. Soon after that they change into their nightgowns and say their goodnights as Coco walks upstairs to her room. Once inside, she quickly takes out the magic book and the wand that she had, and figures out that the wand is actually just a pen, and the picture book is actually a guide to make magical symbols. She quickly sits down at her table and starts drawing the design on the page onto a rough sheet of parchment. After a while she manages to make the design roughly, but doesn't notice that the circle wasn't completed yet. Just when she thought that it was a long shot anyways, a bit of ink drops from her pen and completes the circle. Immediately sparks start flying out of the paper, completely awing her, and she starts bouncing up and down with joy, realizing that she just performed real-life magic. That was the start though, as she immediately starts trying all the different sorts of magical symbols from the book, and even manages to start a fire on her paper. After several tries she starts getting the hang of it, and realizes that the bigger the drawing the more powerful the spell is, and the neater drawings produce spells that last much longer. But being able to draw big and neat is pretty difficult. She comes up with a plan to trace the drawings, as that is much easier to do compared to copying it. So she turns a new page and starts tracing the new pattern. Suddenly, unbeknownst to her, darkness starts spreading behind her, and just as she completes her spell, someone grabs her from behind and jumps out the window. It turns out to be Gojo, who looks terrified and asks which spell did she just use. Coco is scared and replies that she has no idea, while Gojo continues flying in the air. Suddenly, he hears Coco's mom woken up by the ruckus and notices the entire house is turning into an icy crystal. Gojo realizes horrified that Coco just tapped into forbidden magic, but he didn't have enough time to warn her mom, who turns into a crystal alongside the house. Coco loses all control and starts kicking the witch to let her go so she could help her mother, while Gojo struggles to grab her since he can't let her go in the air. Coco, however, manages to kick herself free and would have died for it, if not for Gojo saving her at the very last second from becoming a pancake. Coco, however, is beyond terrified and doesn't care about anything as she rushes straight at her mother. She would have gotten turned into a crystal as well, but Gojo picked her up at the last moment and took off into the air once again. Coco cries relentlessly, apologizing for using magic as she didn't know what would happen, and Gojo believes her. He claims that it was all kept a secret from the masses to prevent tragedies like this. All a person need to do magic is a special ink and a set of casting seals. That's all needed to perform magic. But the one great rule amongst the witches is to never reveal that information to anyone. Since now Coco knows the truth, he has no option but to remove her memories, but Coco begs him not to, as if she forgets about everything. How will she save her mom? She claims that she knows all the drawings by heart and all she wants is to save her mother. Gojo suddenly realizes that the person who sold her this book might be one of the evil gangs of witches who are working against the witches, and realizes that this girl's memories might link one of the members to the gang. Coco asks whether they could save her mother if they find out who sold her the book, and Gojo replies that there is a small chance of saving her that way. And Coco begs her not to erase her memories as she would do anything to save her mom. Gojo asks whether she will always keep this magic a secret and Coco agrees. He then asks whether she is going to try her best to learn and Coco gets surprised. Gojo reveals that if she is going to have the knowledge, it's best that she learns how to control magic. So from this day onwards, she is also a witch. The excitement and fear was too much for little Coco, and she soon ends up sleeping peacefully. By the time she wakes up, she finds herself chilly with the morning rays of the sun hitting her face. She looks around and notices that what happened was not a dream since Gojo is sitting beside her, and they are literally flying in a flying carriage. Gojo notices that she is up and tells her not to worry as they are very close to the location. He realizes that the poor girl must be really cold since she is still in her bedclothes, so he offers her a cape to cover herself with for more warmth. Soon a clearing comes into view, and he reveals that what they see in front of them is his personal workshop where he researches upon magic. And from now on, this is the place where Coco will stay and learn more about magic and control it. Soon they descend down to earth and Gojo continues walking towards the houses and tells Coco that she doesn't need to worry about her house. As before leaving, he spreads some special seeds in the area, which will soon create a protective barrier around the house to prevent any strangers from getting too close. Since as of now, they have absolutely no idea how powerful the spell she cast on the house is. Suddenly, Coco stops in her tracks and starts tearing up. Gojo is a little confused and walks up to her, asking whether she is hurt, but Coco replies that she promised her mom that she would never leave her yesterday. And not even a day has passed, and she has already left her behind. Gojo comforts her and tells her not to worry, promising that they will soon figure out what happened to her mom and get her out of the spell safely. But for now, she needs to wipe off her tears as this is going to be her home for now, till she learns how to handle magic properly. He immediately uses magic to create a water ball and puts it in a device before handing it over to Coco. She is still confused, but Gojo doesn't realize that and tells her to wash her eyes while he gets her some change of clothes. While she was still standing wondering how the hell she is supposed to use this water, a voice comes from behind, and she turns around to find another girl roughly her age with pink hair smiling at her. As she claims that as far as spells go, the one used in that water is pretty simple. She comes down and grabs the device out of her hand, claiming that this magic concentrates all the moisture around in the air and converts it into a ball of water, and if they want to use it, all they need to do is tilt it a little and the water will come rushing out. Coco is amazed by it and thanks the girl for teaching her how to use the device. Before she could wait for a reply, another girl emerges with blue hair, who greets Coco very casually before she continues on her path. Coco notices that the blue-haired girl is holding a bunch of pens and some ink, and realizes that these girls might be witches as well. She asks them about it, and the pink-haired girl replies that they are apprentices right now, and asks whether she herself is not an apprentice. Coco replies with a smile that it might be a little early calling herself a student of Gojo, since she knows absolutely nothing about magic, and it was only a couple of hours ago that she drew her first ever spell. The moment she reveals that, the atmosphere in the room shifts as the girls look at her with fear in their eyes. The pink girl asks whether she is the one whose rumors they have been hearing since the morning, but Coco has no idea what they are talking about. The pink-haired girl tells her that there has been a rumor that an outside, who was a commoner, made use of forbidden magic, but her memories were not erased, and she was taken in as a student. But they had no idea that it was their own teacher who did that. Before they could talk more though, Gojo arrives and introduces the pink-haired girl as Tia, and the blue-haired girl as Rich. With that, he hands her a garb, claiming that all his students wear these clothes, so Coco takes it graciously. Once appropriately dressed, she comes back and sits down, while Gojo claims that he is now going to tell her about the history of magic. He begins that long ago, everyone in humanity had the power to wield magic, as all you needed was a special ink and some parchment to draw on. Every single person on Earth knew how to make use of magic, and it made the impossible possible. But it's the nature of humans to destroy things, and when the absolute power is given to humans, they find a way to misuse it. Many horrific and dangerous spells were created during this time, leading to severe destruction and death. Many wars were waged, but there were no winners and only losers. At that time, a group of highly specialized and strong mages decided to turn away from the ways of war, and managed to create a spell which could remove the memories from anyone. With that, they removed the memories of the entire human race that magic could be wielded by anyone, and only the disciples of those first mages were allowed the information to use magic. The rest of the world from then on believed that magic could only be wielded by a select few special individuals who were born witches. If the truth came out again, the world would again fall into chaos and destruction, just like it did in the times of old. That's the reason why this secret is so well guarded, and why the story of her using forbidden magic has traveled so far so quickly. Coco looks down with guilt in her eyes, and then asks Gojo, what exactly is a forbidden spell? With a look of sadness, Gojo replies that forbidden magic contains the spell from the days of war and destruction that were forbidden to be used at the day the pact was made between the mages. In simple words, the magic which is used to hurt people. Coco immediately walks up to him and begs him to let her learn everything she can about the forbidden magic, because she never wants to use one ever again, and wants to find a cure for her mother. Gojo takes her down into a basement and explains on the way that even though forbidden magic are abundant in nature, there are a few types which could be understood easily. The first one is the magic which is used directly on a person. This includes transformation, age alterations, manipulating thoughts, or directly healing or harming a person. This magic has only one exception, which is removing the memories of people, which could be used in times when somehow a commoner learns about their secret. That is the reason why most of the magic is cast on items such as carriages, lamps, or even windows. He then shows her a tricolored windows which when he rotates creates an anywhere door basically, and the scenery outside, which was just mountains and grasslands, gets converted into a misty lake. Gojo then points at a huge tower, known as the Tower of Tomes, claiming that the moment a magical book is written, a copy immediately is created inside of it, so that no knowledge could be ever lost. Coco immediately tells Gojo to take her to the tower, as she will find the copy of her picture book non-stop. But Gojo tells her not to be so eager, and soon enough, a rumble is heard as a giant snake emerges from the lake and splashes water in through the window, knocking them down. Gojo turns back the window to return to their normal place, and explains that in order to reach the tower, they would have to go through the librarian's trial first. He explains that the Tower of Tome is guarded by 4 librarians, and in order to reach the tower, she will have to pass through all of their trials, which means that she will have to become an excellent witch before she could think of doing anything else. He realizes that he might have been too hard on the very first day, so he turns the scenery once again to a meadow of white flowers, claiming that the magic which is not forbidden is the one which brings everyone joy, so they should start there and then slowly move ahead. With that, he brings her down to her room and claims that she will be sharing a room with her roommate, whose name is Agate, which is a very risky name in my opinion. He claims that they will share one workshop and their bedrooms are still separate. With that, he gives her time to settle down while he returns to tend to some other businesses. Coco looks around the workshop eagerly, thinking about how she always dreamt about where witches work, and now she is seeing it in person. But before she could touch anything, a voice calls from above, and she looks up to find a short-haired girl hovering above. Coco gets out of the way, and the girl lands down, claiming that she is Agate and will be her roommate from now on. Coco warmly greets her, but Agate seems very cold. She coldly asks whether she is the famous outside they all have been hearing about, and Coco looks down at her feet sad. Agate then very coldly claims that she must feel bad at the fact that because of her mistakes, her mother would never be flesh and blood again. Coco immediately tries to defend herself and claims that she is here to fix that, and she will work hard as an apprentice to become a good witch. Agate, however, seems hell-bent on starting a fight, as she seems to be jealous at the fact that everyone has to work so hard, study so much, give exams till their hands are stained in ink, but even then only a few ever get the chance to be an apprentice. But a commoner who has never done anything just became an apprentice after using forbidden magic. Before things could get heated though, Tia and Rich enter the room to call the others down for dinner. That night they have a simple meal of bread and vegetable soup, and the next day, her journey starts. Gojo comes to her room to teach her and hands over a bunch of tools which would get her started with her journey as an apprentice. He first teaches her about all the different elements of magic, which are the same as any other magical world. Water, wind, fire, and light. They are drawn as a specific symbol inside a seal, and then a circle is drawn around them. The moment the circle is drawn, the spell is activated. With all the new information causing an overload in Coco's brain, Gojo tells her to take it easy and try using all she has learned. Coco eagerly settles down on her desk and starts scribbling some symbols on the paper, but soon crumples it all up. But not before Gojo yanks it away. While she tells him not to look at it, as it looks ugly, Gojo checks it out and claims that it is normal for the first few symbols to look misshapen as she has just started learning, and tells her not to worry about it. He does note that the circle of the seal is not connected yet. That's the reason why her spell never activated. Once she completes the circle though, the direction of her magic turns out to be wrong, and a stream of water hits Agate directly, who was also studying. Her entire parchment gets ruined, which scares Coco, who immediately starts apologizing. Agate calmly walks up to her and points out that because one of her lines is longer than the other, that's why the water gushed in a certain direction. Gojo is happy with her attention to detail and reveals that he is going to the Great Hall of Mages for a couple of days. Until then, he tells Agate to help Coco learn about magic as much as she can. The moment Gojo was gone, Agate turns towards Coco and tells her that the cushy little lessons are over, and now she will take her true test and teach her. Coco was a little shocked, but decides not to say anything. And the very next morning, Agate takes Coco near the magic window and tells her to get ready to take her first test. Coco is extremely nervous as she has never done anything like this before, and wants to wait for Gojo to return back before they do anything like this. But Agate tells her that she passed this test when she was just 10. So it's a rite of passage that everyone needs to go through if they want to become an apprentice. She explains that the first test is going to be the consent of the crown, in which she is only allowed to carry 3 devices with her alongside her magical components. She has to then travel through the area and reach the peak of the data ranges on her own power, where she has to find and pick the diadem herb which is found there. Agate hands her a guidance orb, which will point her to the right direction, and also gives her the water magic device to carry water with her. Agate claims that even though she is allowed 3 items, she can only use 2 right now because of her low level, so that's what she should try with. Coco nods and puts everything in her backpack, while Agate turns the magical window to the location where Coco will have to start her journey. But before leaving, Coco asks whether she can have those magical pair of shoes as her third contraption. She claims that she saw Gojo use it when he saved her life, and she saw Agate use it too the other evening, and wonders whether she can borrow it for the test. Agate lets out a sight and takes out her shoes before pushing them in Coco's hand, and then pushes her out of the window so that she can start the test quickly. Once Coco was out in the jungle, Agate calls out to her and tells her that she should try her very best, as everyone is only allowed to give this test once, and if they fail, they will never be allowed to become an apprentice ever again. With that, Agate disappears, leaving Coco completely on her own in the middle of nowhere. Coco gets back up, but suddenly feels terrified of everything in this new area. She talks to herself and manages to calm herself down, after which she takes out the guidance orb and realizes that she has absolutely no idea how this orb works. Suddenly, the thing inside the orb starts levitating when pointing in a certain direction, while it stays still if pointed in a different direction. Seeing this, Coco decides to follow one of the paths where the orb is showing some movement, thinking that a little mountain climbing is nothing to worry about, but ends up falling face first right at the very start. She gets herself back up and starts moving with her willpower, thinking that if Agate managed to pass the exam when she was just 10, she should be able to deal with the exam as well. The way is not easy though, with spider webs everywhere and vines of trees outstretched beneath her feet, ready to trip her over. After a while, she finally manages to get out of the jungle and comes out into an opening of grassland with some ponds in the middle. The thing that takes her breath away, though, is the sight of flying landmasses above her. The orb points up, and she realized that this is probably the data range, and she was completely mistaken, thinking that they would be a mountain range that she will have to climb in order to reach the summit. She sits down on one of the rocks, disheartened, as she never thought that she would have to climb over floating landmasses, and wonders whether this is where her journey ends. Suddenly, she notices a weird-looking bird flying in the sky, and remembers the shoes that she borrowed from Agate, and immediately her mood gets uplifted as she quickly jumps back on her feet and orders the shoes to fly. Nothing happens apart from a strong gust of wind which causes her to lose balance. She quickly goes back to the log and checks the sole of the shoes, only to realize that there are some magical circles on the shoes, but they are divided between the two equally. This gives her an idea, and she stands once again and puts both her feet perfectly in line and brings them closer to complete the circle. The moment her feet touch each other, a green magical energy appears beneath her and slowly lifts her up in the air. She is beyond excited to be able to fly, but out of her excitement, she ends up losing her balance and falls back on the ground. She doesn't accept defeat though, as if she can fly, she will be able to reach the summit in no time. She gets up once again and brings her feet closer so she can fly again, but ends up launching herself like a Coke bottle with some mints inside and flops on the ground once again. She remembers Gojo's words about how she needs to walk before she could learn how to run, so she starts working on her basics and manages to float just a little above the ground and move forward. By the time evening fell, Coco was confident enough in her balance that she started going a little further up. Finally, she decided to try out reaching the first floating landmass and gives herself a sharp boost, reaching the top of it almost perfectly. But when she tried landing down, she ended up messing it and slips down from the land directly below. She starts panicking as beneath her is hard ground, which would break every single bone in her body, so she activates her flight once again and runs into another floating mass, where she grabs onto one of the vines, but that breaks as well, forcing her to struggle to find another vine which she can hold on to. Thankfully, she saves herself from falling down into the lake and holds on for dear life, while the sun sets over the horizon. She takes a deep breath to calm herself down. Coco drags herself out of the lake and starts squeezing the water out of her clothes, even removing her shoes, only to see that they are completely caked in mud and dirty. She decides to do some cleaning and takes out a piece of cloth and starts cleaning the shoe, without ever thinking about the magical seal. The worst happens and the magical seal ends up being wiped off, which sends her into full panic mode and wonders whether she could draw it back on. But that idea was short-lived, as when she brings out her bag, she finds that she ended up spilling all of the magical ink during her fall. As the sun starts disappearing, she wonders whether this is it, and that's where her magical journey ends. Back in the magical workshop, Tia comes down to call Agate for dinner and asks where Coco is as dinner is about to be served. Agate coolly replies that Coco is not here as she has gone to take the test at the data range. Tia is horrified, and she asks Agate why she didn't stop her since she only came to the workshop a couple days ago, and it can be dangerous for her all alone. Agate coldly replies that she hates people who are not good enough, especially outsiders. But she tells Tia not to worry, as Coco will admit defeat and come back soon since the data ranges are at the highest peak at this time of the year, and there is no way she will be able to reach the top even with the magical shoes. She claims that Coco has no idea about the rules or how dangerous this world can be, and Agate doesn't want people like that to become mages. Back near the data ranges, Coco decides on a different strategy and takes a boat to the middle of the lake and tries to get a hold of one of the vines during the time when the landmass comes down. But she can't reach it no matter how hard she tries. She looks at her shoes again, which aren't even good enough for floating now, as even though she drew the symbols back on it, with whatever ink she had left, but because of the water, the ink got diluted and isn't working on the wet shoe as it should. Just then a thought crosses her mind, and she wonders whether she should try and make the magical seal on her feet instead of the shoes. But she puts her shoes back on and drives that thought away, remembering that using magic directly on the body is strictly forbidden. She slumps back in her boat and realizes that she has no idea what magic she could use at this point, and wonders whether whatever Agate said was correct, and she doesn't belong here. She thinks about how anyone could draw a spell, but being able to use it properly is not the same as drawing it. She remembers Gojo looking at her cuts and calling it the true magic. That fills her with a sense of accomplishment, and she gets up realizing that she has her own form of magic. She runs off into the forest to find some sharp rocks and takes some of the dried up ink on the rock wrapped with some fabric, and then dilutes it a little with some water from her device. With that, she takes out her cape and spreads it out as if she was working on a piece of fabric back in her workshop, and draws an insanely sharp straight line that came from the years of experience she had with her mother. She decides that she will use the tools that she is used to and have been working with her entire life, instead of trying to learn something entirely new. By the time dawn breaks, she was done with her magical seal, and even the furry snake wakes up and decides to tag along with her. She remembers Agate telling her that if the magical symbols are not balanced, it will cause the magic to deviate in one direction, so she intentionally creates one long line, hoping that she could control the direction of magic with that. Once everything was ready, she uses her own pen to complete the circle, and immediately winds start gathering around her sail, and before she had the time to doubt herself, she is pushed forward with an unbelievable speed. She tries to steer herself on the water, but it's of no use, and the magic is so strong that it actually breaks the boat in half, while she holds on to the sail and starts flying in the air. She struggles with the sail a bit, but after a while, somehow manages to get it into a shape which makes it more or less like a paraglider, and for the first time in her life, she flies with the help of her own magic completely. It's a dream come true for her, and when she looks down, she remembers her own home and realizes that she never thought that helping her mom doing her daily task would make her good at magic. She quickly checks her orb of guidance and realizes that she needs to go even farther up in the sky, so she takes a sharp turn and starts moving straight up in the air, finally spotting the top of the data peak and the diadem herbs blooming in the sunlight. She does a drive-by and tries to get a hold of some of the herbs, but fails and almost loses her balance, but somehow climbs back on the glider. With a strong resolve, she turns around and once again heads towards the herbs, but misses again. She keeps repeating the same thing, flying towards the herbs but missing them by mere inches, and one of the times she almost crashes into the floating landmass in front of her but barely dodges it, and turns towards the peak again. One last time she rushes straight at the herbs, but this time she hangs upside down to get even more reach, and after missing a bunch of herbs, she finally manages to pick one of them from the ground, completing her test. Back in the workshop, Gojo finally arrives back and is immediately told about the situation by Tia. Even Gojo is nervous, claiming that it was too dangerous for her to go all alone, as she hasn't been living around magic like they all have, and he must go and save her. But to his surprise, finds Coco waiting for them to open the magical window with the diadem herb in her hands. Tia immediately hugs her and starts crying, while Coco smiles and moves towards Agate, who looks surprised. She shows the flower to her, but Agate doesn't reply and simply turns around before moving back up to her room. Gojo finally gets a hold of her and tells her that what she did was extremely dangerous and she could have easily died there. Besides, he claims that she didn't need to prove anything to him, as she already is his apprentice. With that, he takes out a box and hands her the official cloak of the apprentice alongside the hat of an apprentice, which a couple days pass by and finally Gojo decides to revise some of the basics with Coco and tells her about the 4 basic elements in the world. The water sigil, which harnesses the power of creation and destruction. The earth sigil, which is the reason for so many transformative things happening in the world. The wind sigil, which lets the witches go from one place to another with incredible speed. And finally, the fire sigil, which is the sword and the shield of the magical world. He tells Coco to practice these basic sigils so later on they could do some more complex magic. She immediately gets down to it and starts scribbling on a piece of parchment, but ends up starting a fire instead. She starts panicking, but Tia immediately comes in with a bunch of water and puts the fire down. She asks Coco what the hell was she trying to do, and Coco replies that she was working on her flying magic. This confuses Tia, and she asks why she was using the fire sigil while working on levitation. Gojo comes there and hands her a clean towel, telling her that while fire sigil is extremely strong, it's also formless, and because of that it can be highly unstable. Tia continues by showing her own levitation magic and how good she is at it, and asks Coco why does she want to practice her levitation since she must have mastered it on the data ranges when she was flying around the area like a rocket. Coco replies that she borrowed Agate's shoe when she went to the test, but they got ruined, and she doesn't want to return them back in their current state, so she wants to redraw the magical seal. But the problem is that no matter how hard she tries, she isn't able to create a straight line at one position. Gojo thinks about it and grabs her pen, claiming that maybe it's the fault of the pen and not her. He claims that he picked the pen at a random that he found laying around, but maybe it's time now to let Coco choose her own pen, which fits her the best. Tia gets excited and flies down towards Coco, claiming that their next stop is going to be the magic stationery shop. Coco doesn't really know what she is talking about, but Gojo explains that the magic stationery shop carries all sorts of magical items used in day-to-day lives of the witches, so they can get the pens and inks from those places alongside any other supplies that they might need. Coco gets incredibly excited at the proposition and can't wait to leave. They all get dressed up and leave for the shop. Gojo carries both Coco and Agate on his shoulders, while Tia and Rich fly on their own with the help of their shoes. After flying for a while, they finally spot an island town, and Gojo claims that this town is the closest witches' town to their workshop, so they buy all their stuff from here. Once they land down into the town, Coco is beyond overwhelmed as she sees witches and mages walking around the town as if it's the most normal thing to do. Young witches play around with magic, while scholars talk about which ink is the best for which purpose. Gojo decides to tell Coco the history of this place and claims that a long time ago there was a constant threat of some monstrous animals known as the moleworms, which could attack the cities at any point. To defend against such an attack and to get quick information in case they have to evacuate, the witches created this island with a watchtower on the top. Then as more witches gathered around this area, this island slowly started becoming a town, and now is one of the most bustling places for witches in the area. Agate ends up interrupting Gojo, and tells them that she has better things to do than to be a tour guide for Coco, so she is going to go ahead on her own to the shops she wanted to visit. Gojo tells her to meet them at the magic stationery shop, and then turns towards Coco and asks how things are between her and Agate. She replies that they are not the best right now, but she hopes to become a friend of hers soon enough. With that bit of optimism, they enter the town and start exploring the area, where Coco is surprised and impressed by damn near anything she spots. After making their way through the city, they finally find the magic stationery shop, and Coco is immediately taken aback by a giant silvery tree in the middle of the shop. Just then, the owner of the shop comes out and asks whether this is the first time she is seeing the silverwood tree, as this should be elementary stuff for any apprentice. Gojo introduces Coco to him and claims that she is still pretty new. The shopkeeper immediately shows interest in her, asking whether this is the girl that he has heard so much about. The owner tells her that her shop is the best shop in the area, as he has every sort of pen and can extract ink from any magical substance. Coco has no idea what he is talking about it, so he asks her to follow him to give her a demonstration. She follows him upstairs, and on the first level, spots a boy roughly her age carving some of the branches intently, so she doesn't disturb him and continues upstairs, where the old man clips one of the twigs from the tree and then puts it in a beaker over some fire, and the tree immediately loses the black leaves that it had and turns silvery. The man tells her that all the magic ink comes from trees like this. Gojo explains that the ink is literally made from the tree's blood, which is why these trees are very important for the witches. The owner tells her that according to the legend, a silverwood tree once fell in love with a woman and offered her its bark as pens and its blood as the ink, and that's where magic came from. He then puts some of the ink into a vial and hands it to Coco, telling her that he has no doubt that she will find the pen that she wants today. She happily comes down the stairs with the two young apprentices as they discuss what kind of pen would be good for her, when Coco's heart stops as she spots the same witch who sold her the book with the forbidden magic staring at her from outside the shop. She immediately rushes out to confront her, but the witch is too fast and takes off immediately. Tia and Rich are both confused, but immediately run after Coco as she might get lost in the city. Coco continues chasing after the witch and even stumbles into Agate, but doesn't stop and continues running. Rich and Tia also catch up to Agate and drag her with them, claiming that there is something wrong. At that moment, Coco can think of nothing else but finding the witch so that she can learn how to turn her mother back to normal. But no matter how much she chases her, she can't seem to find her. Finally, they all enter an area where mist surrounds them, and suddenly they find themselves in a different looking place. Tia manages to grab Coco's arm and tells her to stop, while Coco explains the situation. Rich notices that something is wrong, as even though they just turned a couple of alleys, this area looks entirely different. Agate realizes that Rich is correct and checks the stone, which is some white sandstone which is not found in the island town. Tia refuses to believe it and immediately takes flight to see from above, but comes down scared, claiming that they are definitely not in the town, but they didn't go through any teleportation of window, so what exactly happened? That's when Rich's face turns a little dark, and even Coco realizes that only forbidden magic allows teleportation without any conduit. Tia starts freaking out and running around randomly to find a way out, when suddenly they hear a huge roar and a blue-colored dragon emerges from the top. Coco's blood dries up as she stands there without moving an inch, while the dragon comes closer to them. Agate is the only one who could think of anything, and she tells them to maintain eye contact and slowly move back. They follow her command, and then once distance was created, they all take off running away as fast as possible. But the dragon is catching up, so Agate turns around and shoots a flame blast right in its face. They manage to confuse the dragon and immediately start running, while Coco is incredibly impressed and asks how did she do that. Agate claims that she used the fire magic alongside some wind magic to shoot the flames right at the dragon, and shows her the diary that she has where all the spells are already created and all they need to do in order to activate them is complete the circle. They continue running when finally they end up reaching a dead end. Tia ends up getting overwhelmed and starts claiming that she doesn't want to die just now, but Agate helps her get a hold of herself, claiming that they are all apprentices and can find a way out of it. This helps calm her down, and they immediately come up with a plan to break through the wall in front of them. Tia uses a flight magic and uses that to distract the dragon by her cloak flying in the air, while Agate starts drawing on the wall. But just then Coco notices a weird magical circle on the wall far away from them and tries to make Agate look. But that turns out to be a big mistake, as Agate ends up messing up her magical symbol. This pushes her over the edge, and she starts talking very rudely to Coco, claiming that she should never disturb a witch while they are drawing, and calls her an idiot for turning her mother into stone. Coco stands there unmoving and hurt, while Tia doesn't know what to do. Thankfully, Rich manages to create a bunch of spells on the wall and breaks through, which the girls immediately use to go to the other side away from the dragon, while a hurt Coco stands there wondering whether she should go or just stay here and accept the consequences of her actions. Meanwhile, back in the city, Gojo is looking for the girls all over, and comes to know by the boy in the shop that he saw them chase after a weird witch with a different looking hat. Gojo realizes that it must have been the Brimmed Hat Witches, who are an organization of evil witches who want to push the world back into chaos by the use of forbidden magic. But he never expected one to find Coco so soon. He has absolutely no idea where they could have gone. But just then, the furry creature that Coco brought after the test ends up finding Gojo and starts leading him towards the location while Gojo prays to God that the girls are safe. The girls keep running through the endless maze as the dragon screams and howls above them in anger, looking for its next meal. But no matter how much they run, the girls always seem to keep coming back to the same location, realizing that this is some sort of witchcraft which is causing them to run in circles again and again. Agate claims that she has lost the count of how many times they have come to the same location and tells everyone that it would be best if they conserve their energy and hide somewhere instead. They find a quiet area and huddle down to get some rest, while Coco notices that Tia seems to be scared still and feels cold. Coco decides to finally say something and apologizes to Tia for putting all of them in such a dangerous situation. Tia immediately realizes that Coco is blaming herself for this because of Tia's earlier outburst about being scared and not ready to die, and immediately tells Coco that it's not her fault. Coco, however, returns back her hat, which she dropped earlier, and takes out her cape before putting it on Tia for warmth. While she claims that she can just huddle up with her for warmth, Tia feels a little more calm now, while Coco opens up to her, claiming that she likes having a cape because it gives her strength and courage, since no one knows that within the witch's cape there is just a little scared girl who has no idea what she is doing with her life. Hearing Coco open up to her, Tia finally forgets her fear and hugs Coco tightly while creating a magical cloudy ball to cover both of them. She holds Coco's hands, apologizing to her for her actions before. She claims that Coco is very new to this world, so as her senior it's her job to take care of her. But instead of that, she let the fear get the better of her. Coco, however, is lost at the moment as she starts rolling around the warm, cloudy interior, asking what the hell is this, as it is so comfortable that she can sleep right now, not caring about the dragon roaming outside. Tia laughs, claiming that ever since she was a kid, she has always wanted to sleep in the clouds, so she created this original spell and is currently tweaking it to make it better, as she hopes to release it to the wider public one day as an original spell. She then takes off the cloak and puts it back over Coco, claiming that she should always keep her cloak with her and hold on to it till they can all take the novice cloaks off together and wear the real witch's cloak. They both start laughing at that, when suddenly Agate enters the cloud, claiming that she heard everything, and tells Tia that if you want to lie on it, it needs to be made up of a more dense material. Just then even Rich enters, claiming that the outside is too cold, and she wants some warmth as well. Agate continues that if she wants the cloud to fly, she would need something lighter yet durable like cotton. Tia claims that it would become like a normal mattress then, but Agate replies that we can't escape reality, and brings the topic back to the current problem, which is how to escape this place. Agate recollects everything they know about this place, which is that this area is completely bewitched, causing them to run in circles. But she claims that every magic requires a casting circle, even the forbidden kind, which means that they just have to find the magic circle. Coco interrupts them and claims that she thinks she saw the forbidden magic seal earlier. She takes them to a higher place and shows them the magic circle, and Rich claims that there is no doubt that it is the casting seal which is holding everything in place. Agate claims that the dragon must be guarding the magic seal, which means that they need to find a way to defeat the dragon. She starts taking out her fire magic spells, when Coco interrupts again and claims that the last time she used her magic, it didn't seem to do much damage. Tia is horrified at that, while Agate looks at Coco furiously for calling her magic weak. She quickly clarifies that she simply means that her magic was able to slow the dragon down, but it didn't do damage to it, which means that it is immune to fire magic. In order to defeat the dragon, they will have to find something which the dragon will react to and is weak against. Agate asks how exactly does she think should they defeat the dragon then, but Coco replies that they won't defeat the dragon. Agate is confused and asks whether Coco is still pissed off about what she said to her earlier, but Coco replies that it's nothing like that, and she simply thought of an interesting idea after looking at Tia's spell. She takes a rock and draws it on the nearby wall to make the others understand and claims that instead of taking the fight head-on with the dragon, they simply create a huge cloud bed for it. She tells them that maybe just like them, the dragon is also cold, and if it tries the warm cloud and finds comfort there, it might just stay there instead of chasing after them. Agate thinks that the idea is a little far-fetched, but Rich is 100% on board, claiming that no one can refuse a warm bed, even a dragon would love to sleep peacefully in a warm place. Agate still can't wrap her head around it and tries to think about it more critically. While Coco goes up the stairs to see where the dragon is at, she tells them that they should try this idea out as they have nothing to lose anyways. And that strikes a chord with Agate, who realizes that Coco is not wrong. Coco continues that she doesn't want to hurt anything, not even the dragon, so she would want to show it the gentler kind of magic, where it can feel safe and secure. Both Rich and Tia manage to convince Agate as well, and Tia hands her pen to Agate since she draws the best seal and is the most experienced of them all. Agate takes the pen and starts drawing the magic seal to try out different variation of the cloud, as it needs to be light enough to float, but strong enough to take the entire weight of the dragon. Tia advises to use shredded paper, but they don't have enough to make the spell. Coco and Rich offer their own idea in the form of using their cloak or their hair for the cloud, but none of that is enough. Just then Agate thinks about only if they had sand around them, they could have tried it out, and remembers that with the wall breaker spell they can actually create very fine sandy particles. Agate claims that they should make multiple smaller magic seals for that, as it would create a finer sand, and since small seals are Rich's specialty, she gets to work drawing the seals at an incredible speed. Agate then turns to Tia and tells her to create a spell to pack the sand tightly together, while she would work on how to create a spell which would envelop everything to create a warm sanctuary. Coco immediately asks whether there's anything she could do to help, but Agate tells her to simply wait and watch, as there is nothing she could accomplish with her current skill set. They all get to work, and Coco notices that Agate has discarded a bunch of magical seals that were not to her standards. She picks one of them up and checks it out, only to be surprised by how perfect the circles are. She sneaks closer to Agate to get a better look at how she does it, and realizes that she practices drawing the circle in the air a couple of times before actually drawing them on paper. She realizes that both Rich and Tia are also doing the same, and that's the reason why their circles are so much cleaner than her own. She decides to practice as well, and starts scribbling on her notebook while time slowly passes and everything turns dark. The area starts getting even cooler and Tia asks whether they should start a fire. Rich claims that she is out of paper, while Agate is still racking her brain on the spell, which could create a cloud where the dragon could stay. They start thinking about the problem together and Agate wonders whether there is a simple solution that she is overlooking. But just then Coco takes her attention as she managed to draw a fire sigil perfectly so that it stays contained instead of going berserk as it was doing before. Tia and Rich both congratulate Coco for being able to draw such a perfect magic circle, while Agate looks at all the failed attempts that Coco had when something strikes to her. She tells them her plan, and they all get ready to execute it. They start running together and moving in groups of 2. Tia runs with Coco while Agate takes Rich with her. They all take their positions and start drawing on the ground, anxiously looking back to see where the dragon is. Once everything was completed, Coco gives the signal to complete the circle and activate the magic. With that, they start activating all the circles that they drew on the way, causing explosions everywhere, which grabs the attention of the dragon. It turns out that Agate realized that the way to solve the problem is repetition magic. They will simply create a lot of explosions which will create a cloud of fine warm dust, and enclose it with repetition magic, which causes the dust to keep being regenerated again and again. This would be dense enough to take the weight of the dragon as well. The plan turns out to be a total success as the dragon jumps on the cloud and lays down on its back to take in the warmth. The girls celebrate, but Agate tells them that the job is not done yet. They quickly move past the dragon and make their way up to the magic seal, realizing that they have never seen sigils like this before. Agate wonders whether they should try and break the seal open, but unbeknownst to her, Gojo is on his way as well. He follows the furry creature to an alley, and notices that the creature is sniffing at some fallen rocks. He picks one of them up, only to create a portal which shoots an energy wave which would have killed the shopkeeper's apprentice. but Gojo grabs him and moves out of the way. That ends up causing a rift in the spell, which starts falling apart, and the noise and disturbance wakes up the dragon again. The spell starts disintegrating, and the stairs beneath Agate end up breaking, causing her to fall in an endless abyss. And since she doesn't have her flying shoes anymore, she thinks that this is the end for her. Thankfully, Gojo comes at the last moment and saves her from becoming dragon food. The dragon comes at them again, but Gojo manages to dodge it and races up into the air through the clouds, and then uses his own magic to create a huge golden watery dragon, which dwarfs the actual dragon as it gets swept up in its jaws, and the water breaks against the floor, ending the dragon's life. Tia and Rich both appear near him, crying and thanking the god that he came, when he notices that Coco is not with them. It turns out that the evil witch got a hold of Coco, who goes unconscious while the witch tells her that she is getting Coco ready for her duty and promises to teach her things that Gojo never could. With that, she disappears, and the next time Coco opens her eyes, she finds herself in the alleyway of the island town surrounded by Gojo and the others. Gojo claims that they found her on the staircase unconscious, and suddenly wonders whether the evil witch did anything to her memories, but Coco claims that she's okay, just a little shaken up. She finally lets go of her emotions and starts crying, apologizing for putting everyone in danger. But Gojo puts her hat back on, claiming that from what he heard, they showed incredible skill and determination to survive in there and should be proud of it. With that, he collects all his apprentices and starts leaving. But before that, he tells the shopkeeper to have a look at the ink used to cast the forbidden magic spell, and tells him to keep it off the books. The shopkeeper laughs, claiming that if forbidden magic is concerned, he will have to report it in. But a single look from Gojo stops his words in his mouth, as he agrees to keep it off the books, while Gojo takes the girls and heads back to the workshop, not knowing what the evil witch wants from Coco. Some time passes by since the last incident, and the girls have returned to their normal lives of practicing their magic at the workshop. And just like every other day, Agate is getting annoyed by all the sounds that Coco is making as she is struggling to make her sigils properly. The sounds keep interrupting Agate and ruining her concentration, but instead of shouting at Coco to shut the hell up, she decides to be the bigger person and simply moves outside the workshop to work in peace. Coco wonders whether she was the reason why Agate moved outside, while Agate closes her eyes and with one swift motion creates a magic circle which activates a light magic beam which rushes into the sky. Agate seems to be pleased by herself, but knows that the beam is pretty weak right now. She notices a four-winged bird fly near the magic beam, when suddenly the beam disappears as the magic runs out. Back in the workshop, Coco tries to concentrate, but fails at making a proper magic circle once again. Lying down with frustration and defeat, she picks up her stone with the ink on it, which feels natural to her, but it can only be used to draw big sigils on a huge canvas. Since most of the times they use a small diary, they must use a pen to draw in it. And that day, before she could choose her own pen, she ended up getting distracted by that evil witch that caused everyone to get into trouble. She thinks about how she wasn't able to cast a single spell that day, but remembers that Gojo told her that even ideas mean a lot and are the core of magic, so she did a great job. She decides that there is no use making herself sad over something that is already in the past. She gets back up once again, trying to hype herself up as repetition is the only way she could master using the pen. But she can't fool herself that easily. Deep in her heart, she feels like she could never be as good as the rest of the girls, and starts feeling sleepy because of all the stress, which is very relatable. Just then, Gojo appears behind her and tells her kindly that if she sleeps here out in the open, she will definitely catch a cold. Coco immediately sits back up, claiming that she wasn't sleeping. She was just blinking really slowly. Gojo laughs at her and tells her to follow him into the kitchen. Coco happily goes after him and smells the incredible smell of food coming from the stove as usual. Gojo reaches for the upper shelf and grabs the pot from it, before opening it up to reveal an amazing looking stew inside. She offers Coco a bite, and she happily accepts, taking a bite and immediately getting lost in the amazing flavors of the dish. Gojo smiles at her and then tells her that actually the stew that she is eating is technically 2 years old. Her smile freezes, and she stops chewing, wondering whether this weird magic guy is trying to poison her or something. But Gojo from Temu tells him not to worry, as the pot recooks the entire dish every single time because of a magic enchantment that he performed on the lid. He claims that he has to continuously redraw the magic circle to make sure that it works properly. Otherwise, the circle will just disappear. Gojo then brings out some yams and lays them out on the table. Coco smiles at him, claiming that she really likes it, and Gojo tells her to bake one for him. Coco looks at him confused, But Gojo tells him that she already knows how to create a fire now with her magic, so it shouldn't be very difficult. With that, Gojo starts prepping some ingredients, while Coco very carefully draws the fire sigil and creates a small controlled fire, which makes her really happy. With that, she grabs the yam and tries to put it on top of the fire to roast it, but the yam simply falls through it and extinguishes the fire. Gojo turns around and tells her to add the sign of levitation as well so that the yam floats in the air while it gets roasted. Coco tries again, but this time she ends up drawing a bigger circle which completely burns the yam. Gojo smiles at her and tells her to keep trying. Coco nods and keeps at it, drawing one magic symbol after another, discarding the ones that don't work, when finally she gets it drawn perfectly, and the yam stays inside the fire, slowly getting roasted. She picks it out of the flames with some tongs and hands it over to Gojo, who congratulates her success and open the yam up only to see that it's been perfectly cooked on the inside too. He then asks Coco whether she still feels sleepy, and she realizes that she doesn't. Gojo tells her that water magic was the first thing that he ever mastered, and that was because he was deathly scared of water and being wet. He used to excuse himself out of any washing duties, but he soon started integrating the water magic in her daily life and soon learned that the magic that you can use on a day-to-day basis is the best teacher. Coco wonders how she could integrate magic into her life, and Gojo replies that she can try to learn how to cook, as that oftentimes uses multiple different kinds of magic and is fun as well. Just then, Tia and Rich both come down smelling the scent of the baked yam, and Tia immediately claims that she will grill the cheese. But Gojo tells her that he wants Coco to do that this time. They all get to work, preparing an amazing spread for some supper, and Coco actually manages to melt some cheese using her fire magic by drawing a really small magic circle. Finally, the burgers are created, and Coco suggests that they should eat it outside. Gojo thinks about it, and the idea of a picnic is actually pretty enticing, so he goes off to prepare the rest of the things. While Agate also arrives, Coco asks Agate whether she wants to come with them on a picnic, but Agate obviously has to act tough, so she tells them to go ahead as she will eat while she is practicing her spells. And anyways, it's raining outside. The girls seem pretty down, as the weather was pretty good just a couple moments ago. But Gojo comes from behind and asks why the long faces. He simply walks outside with a spell on himself, and everything around him turns sunny and bright. The girls are beyond impressed seeing what he can do as they all start walking with him for their little picnic. While it rains everywhere else, they walk beneath a stone bridge and set up a lantern before sitting down to eat. They have an amazing time eating all the delicious food they brought, and soon enough even the rain clouds start disappearing. A rainbow appears in the sky, which fills Coco's little heart with joy, and she jumps down on the ground telling Gojo and the others that she is going to get Agate, as well as she wants her to see the beautiful rainbow with them. She runs through the field and reaches back to the workshop. But just as she was about to knock, the door opens and a tall witch with a dumb-looking goatee emerges from the house asking Coco who the hell she is. As he has never seen her before, he wonders whether she is a messenger of some sort, when Gojo comes running after her, claiming that they should get back in as a storm is coming. Coco immediately hides behind Gojo and shouts at the man that she is Gojo's apprentice. The goatee man is annoyed and asks Gojo what is this girl talking about and how can he take an apprentice while he was gone. Gojo replies that it was a little sudden and the circumstances were very different, since this girl was the victim of forbidden magic. The moment the goatee man hears about forbidden magic, his demeanor becomes even colder as he immediately grabs Coco by the arm and starts dragging her out, claiming that he would have nothing to do with the Brimmed Hat evil witches and that he is going to turn Coco into the Knights of the Witches, as they will deal with her. Coco tries to stop, but the witch is too strong. But just then the rain falling around them stops, and the water rushes to create a wall in front of them. As Gojo uses her magic to stop the witch, he tells the man that even though he is a dear friend, he can't allow anyone to touch Coco, let alone turn her into the Knights. The man is surprised that Gojo would use magic on him, and asks who exactly is this girl. But Gojo tells him to come inside first, and then they can talk about it. Once inside, the man named Rujo sits by the fire as Gojo tells him everything that happened, and he gets annoyed, asking Gojo that this was the reason why he decided to take an outsider into the world of witches. Gojo calmly tells him that the outside has a name. Rujo immediately apologizes to Coco, claiming that he doesn't mean to be rude to her, but witches don't have any other words for someone who is not a witch. Gojo introduces Rujo to Coco, claiming that he is a friend of Gojo and stays here as the watchful eye. He explains that witches that live outside the main towns or the Great Hall of the Mages are assigned a watcher over them to make sure that they don't break rules. Rujo is the watcher of his workshop. Rujo scratches his head, claiming that it's his literal job as a watcher to not let things like these happen. But it seems like Gojo can't be convinced now. Gojo hands Coco a bowl of soup laced with some honey to calm her nerves. Gojo explains that he would have erased Coco's memories that night, but then they would have also lost the memory of that magic book that could lead them to the brimmed hats. Rujo angrily tells him that it's not their job to go after the evil magic users, and that's something that the knights take care of. Coco looks confused, so Gojo tells her that Knights of the Witches are basically people who are responsible for removing memories from any outsiders, going after the evil witches and making sure that order is maintained. Gojo claims that it's his fault that Coco learned the secret of magic. So if the knights were to erase the memories of Coco, they would have to erase his memories too, as he is the reason why she learned anything. Rujo knows that he can't let that happen, so he tells him that he is letting it pass for now. But if anything goes wrong, he will report it to the Great Hall. With that, he leaves back to his own room, while Gojo tells Coco that she has nothing to worry about as she passed the magical test with her own magic. He tells everyone to dry off and leaves to get dinner ready. Coco suddenly notices that her pet is missing, so she ends up making her way into Rujo's room, where she tries to be quiet and find the furry snake. But Rujo spots her and comes down from his nest. He hands Coco her pet, and she realizes that it's all dry somehow. Just then, Rujo connects the magic circle between his two rings and basically creates a warm hairdryer which completely dries Coco up. He tells her to leave, but she finds out that the stone beneath her glow when she walks on them. She screams in joy, claiming that this is the thing that made her fall in love with magic. Rujo tells her that this is his masterpiece and shows her how it works. But Coco is busy rolling around on the floor in joy, claiming that it is a very core memory of hers and thanks him from the bottom of her heart. Rujo starts blushing and kicks her out of the room, telling her not to come inside again. The next day is also just as dull as it continues to rain all day, while Agate tries to practice her magic, but keeps getting distracted by the sound of rain pattering on the window. She decides that this is a training of its own as she must learn how to concentrate. So she shuts her eyes and manages to draw a magic circle, which releases the same beam of light. Suddenly, she hears some commotion coming from below, so she hurries down only to find some humans at their door, begging Gojo to help them as one of the bridges collapsed because of the rain and a carriage got stuck. The man cries that his son is in that carriage, so Gojo tells him that he will be there immediately. He tells Agate to keep everyone inside, but Agate herself tells Gojo to take her with him, promising that she would not come in his way and will be of use. Gojo tells her that taking her right now is not something that he wants to do, as she is still young and hasn't even given her second test, which qualifies her to use her magic in front of the common people who will be present in a huge number at the location. He tries to calm Agate down, but she smacks his hands away, claiming that she has been preparing for that exam for years at this point, and she has practiced enough to be able to do any magic that she has learnt in front of the outsiders who are not witches. Gojo is still hesitant, but she speaks up, claiming that as his teacher, he should be eager to get her more experience so that she could get better. Gojo starts wondering how he could calm this little idiot down, but just then, Rujo also arrives from above, having heard everything, and tells Gojo that he will ready some of the healing spells and the anywhere window just in case of any emergencies. He also claims that he will take Agate ahead with him, which shocks Gojo, but Rujo tells him to calm down as these kids would be able to only learn properly from actual experience. Agate quickly runs off to fetch her cloak and hat, and obviously, hearing that Agate is going, both Rich and Tia decide that they are going to accompany Gojo as well. He worries mostly about Agate as he knows that instead of finding joy in the things that she has already accomplished at such a young age, she gets frustrated over the things that she still can't do. He worries that a mindset like that might end up resulting in her trying to run instead of walk and take a step which puts her in danger just because she wants to get better. A little while passes by as Agate sits on Rujo's horse in the heavy rain. He soon realizes that the ground beneath them is not very stable, and they will have to make sure that they are keeping an eye out on where they are walking. Otherwise, they would end up falling down to their death. Soon they find a cart stuck in the flash flood that was created because of such heavy rainfall. The water is so muddy that nothing else is visible, while some common men stand near the fallen bridge waiting for help to arrive. The moment they see the witches arriving to help them, their faces light up, as they start shouting down at the cart that they don't need to worry anymore, as the witches are here to save them. Rujo dismounts alongside Agate and hands her his magic rings that he used on Coco to dry her up, and tells her to make sure that the people standing there are dry, and once she does that she has to be on standby to await further orders. Agate isn't really satisfied with the job that she has been given, as she wanted to use some real magic of her own instead of using a magical contraption. but Rujo shuts her down, immediately telling her to do as he tells her to do. He realizes that Agate thinks that this job is beneath her, and tells her that this is what Gojo is worried about. He tells her that even the most basic of jobs are very important in the long run, and people who are impatient are bound to make mistakes. He doesn't mince his words at Atelier and tells her that if all she wants to do is show off her magic, then there will be more opportunities for her to do so in the future. But right now, they are dealing with the lives of people, and if she wants to be useful right now, she needs to think carefully what her magic is for. This doesn't go well with Agate, as instead of understanding what he was trying to say, she starts thinking about how she is being treated like an ignorant child again. She works the hardest of any of the apprentices, but if she never gets an opportunity to show what she could do, then what's the point of it all? She makes up her mind that she is going to prove that she is a worthy witch, as that's the only way she could gain the confidence of her teachers. Meanwhile, the adults are busy with actual work. As Rujo jumps down on top of the cart in the rushing waves, while Gojo, who arrived alongside the other apprentices, also jumps down with a magical sword and starts hovering just above the water before slicing the oncoming water in half with his sword. And then he plunges the sword deep in the ground, parting the river as if he was a knockoff Moses, giving Rujo the opportunity to take the people who were stuck inside the cart out. The onlookers are amazed by what the witches can do, while Tia tries her best to tell them to back off, as it's not very safe near the cliff edges. Rujo immediately grabs the first child from the cart and flies back up to safety, telling Gojo to hold on as there is one more child inside. But even Gojo is struggling and thinks about how he doesn't really like water at all even now. Rujo quickly comes back and grabs the second child before flying back up, telling Gojo that he can come back now. So Gojo slices through the water to make some distance and then flies back up to safety as well. They both land down near the others and the kid runs to his parents, thankful to be alive, while the father thanks the witches from the bottom of his heart for saving his kid. Gojo tells him not to worry too much about it, claiming that his apprentices are also here and they will help with the injuries if any, but he turns around to see that all the girls are missing from their spots and are actually surrounding his magical sword that he used to part the flooded river in two. He walks up to them and they immediately start asking questions about the sword one after the other. He replies that the sword is named Raincleaver and is an original magic of his own. He inscribed a bunch of small magical seals on top of the sword and claims that with this many seals the sword can even cleave through the ocean. Tia wanted to touch the sword once, but Gojo tells her that she can't touch it as magical contraptions and weapons can be insanely strong and if not used properly, can create a lot of trouble for the user and those nearby them. With that, he puts the sword back in its sheath, while Rujo tells him that he is going to check up river to make sure that no one else is stuck in the river. Gojo agrees that it's a good idea, claiming that he will check downstream then, and tells Tia to come with him while Rujo takes Rich with him, leaving Agate and Coco to look after the villagers there and make sure that they are not hurt. Coco seems to be happy with the job that's been given to her, but Agate seems to be a little pissed. They soon start tending to the wounded and applying medicine on the injuries, while Coco thinks about how she needs to quickly fix up Agate's flying shoes and give it back to her, as that's the only reason why she couldn't accompany any of the witches to survey the damage and was left tending to the wounded. While they were busy dealing with the wounded, they suddenly hear some commotion and check back only to realize that the idiot son who was just saved from certain death in the river is trying to go back down to get some of his stuff back from the cart, which is stuck near the bank. He ties a rope around the tree and starts descending down the slope, while his father screams at him to return back right now as the edge is not very stable. The son, however, doesn't listen and tells the father not to worry as he continues to go down, while Agate and Coco watch from beside the father, wondering what they could do to help. Suddenly, Coco notices that the tree that the rope has been tied to is giving way, and before she could properly warn the others, the tree collapses alongside a part of the edge, causing a small landslide. When the dust clears, Agate notices that the father is horrified as his son might have been buried beneath the rubble, with no chances of him being saved at this point. Suddenly, she notices the hat of Coco lying in the rubble and looks around, horrified, as she realizes that Coco got caught in the landslide as well and is currently fighting for her life, as she clings on to the boulder near her while the rapids threaten to sweep her away downstream. The boy who caused all this is also there, but he is lying completely unconscious. While his father freaks out, he doesn't know what to do when he finally turns towards Agate and grabs her, asking that she should help him, as she is also a witch and can use her magic to save his son. Instead of worrying about the lives of Coco and the boy, she suddenly thinks about how this is her chance to show everyone that they were wrong about her, and that she is not a kid. The masters are not here right now, and she can't call them without her magic shoes, And since the situation is desperate, if she can use magic to save the day, everyone will have to believe that she is a very capable witch. Suddenly it dawns upon her what using magic in public means, as the people start surrounding her, eager to see her use magic, which starts putting a huge amount of pressure on her. She starts remembering her childhood and how she belongs to a family where she was abandoned, because they thought that her magic was average at best, and that she couldn't represent her family and will only bring shame. She starts feeling the pressure get to her, when Coco's voice breaks through to her, asking whether she can do anything from down there to save the boy's life. This breaks Agate out of her trance, and she starts thinking clearly for a second, remembering Rujo telling her to think about what magic stands for and how she can best use it to help people. She asks Coco to give her an idea of what the situation is down there. Coco replies that she is stuck on the boulder, but the current is slower near her, so she doesn't think that she will be swept away. But she can't climb back up either, as the rocks are very slippery. The boy, on the other hand, is not in the best condition since he is unconscious and is pinned under a giant boulder which can't be moved just by human strength alone. Moreover, her entire satchel containing her magic gear is soaking wet, so she can't really use many magic spells. Agate starts thinking about what she can do to regain control of the situation, especially since she can't let the non-witches see her using her magic. Coco somehow manages to pull herself onto the shore and shouts at Agate to throw her Rujo's hairdryer rings. Agate quickly puts it in a bundle and throws it at Coco, who catches it and starts using it like a Dyson appliance, completely drying her satchel up, so she could use magic again. Agate realizes one problem though. Coco has never practiced doing magic in front of other people, especially when you have to hide it beneath your cloak and go with sheer memory to draw the correct spell. She wonders whether they risk the others seeing her create the spell, when she suddenly remembers that Coco is not alone. She quickly takes the attention of the onlookers away from Coco and towards her, as she claims to be Gojo's top apprentice and masterfully creates a spell beneath her cloak and launches a beam of light up in the air, which turns into a bird made up of pure light that starts flying around, putting everyone in awe. Meanwhile, Coco goes down towards the boy and makes sure that he is doing okay, while wondering how she can save him. The people at the top soon get over the magic and start asking questions about how exactly is that supposed to help the people who are stuck down, while the father gets pissed off and turns around, determined to go and save his son himself, while Agate's heart drops as she realizes that he will end up seeing Coco use her magic, thankfully for her. Just as the man turned around, Coco came up alongside the boy flying on top of her own cloak, and starts telling the man to pull them down, as she can't do that herself. Once down, the man hugs his son, while Coco hugs Agate, claiming that she was very scared. But then she used the spell that she saw them use when they were running away from the dragon, the spell that created a hole in the wall, so she used that on the rock to break it and carried the boy back up. Before they could celebrate though, a bunch of white ribbons surround and capture both of them, pulling them up in the air, while a bunch of witches with wings on their hats fly up to them, claiming that they are the Night Morales, basically the witch police, and are here because someone used a taboo spell. Agate claims that there were no forbidden spells used, but turns down alongside Coco only to realize that not only the rock is converted to sand, but the entire bank seems to have been converted into sand. The police bring Coco up close to him, claiming that he will give her no mercy, and takes out a weird, eye-looking thing that starts moving towards Coco's eyes, while she is too scared to even scream. The cop tells Coco not to worry about it, as once when her memories are wiped out, she won't remember anything, not even the fear that she is feeling right now. She will just become completely blank and once again an outsider who has no idea what magic is. Agate tries to resist and claims that there has been a misunderstanding, but as usual the cops are on a power trip and refuse to listen. Just as the magical eye thingy was going to attach itself to Coco, Rich arrives out of nowhere like a missile and pushes the magical eye out of his hand. The knights are confused when suddenly the ribbons that they used to grab the girls start burning, releasing both Coco and Agate from their grasp as they start falling down. But as they hit the ground, they realize that they are sitting on the cloudy magic spell that Tia has created. Tia stands in front of Agate and Coco, telling the knights that they are wrong and something must be amiss since Coco wouldn't do anything like this. While the knights wonder what the hell is happening, they regenerate the ribbons, claiming that a bunch of children won't make them change their mind and they are not here to hear their pointless whinging. Rich gets annoyed, claiming that she hates adults who think children are subhuman creatures with no mind of their own, but the Knights Morales pay no attention towards her, claiming that at this point all of them will be punished for obstruction in an investigation. Suddenly, a voice speaks up from behind the leader of the cops, as Gojo arrives just on time, putting the tip of his magic sword on the cop's throat, claiming that for a person who doesn't want to listen, the cops do talk a lot. He claims that these kids are his apprentice, and they are not allowed to lay a single hand on his apprentices. The cop named East turns around, claiming that the kids seem to be just as insolent as their teacher, and Gojo snaps back, claiming that he would rather have insolent kids than whatever East and his little party is supposed to be. One of the cops immediately points his spear at Gojo, but East tells them to stand down, knowing full well that Gojo can blast the cops easily all alone. Instead, he decides to talk and tells Gojo that a terrain-altering spell was used to completely change the area, which is similar to the spell that created the data ranges where apprentices take their tests. He claims that these spells predate the formation of the pact and are considered as an act of war, which means that he is simply doing his job and trying to protect the realm. Gojo claims that even if that was the case, it's not fair for them to take someone's memory away without at least hearing their side, and moreover, he has never given his apprentices the tools or the technique to actually perform magic of such scale. East agrees that Gojo wouldn't teach these things, but he suggests that maybe the Brimmed Caps did. This puts a moment of hesitation in Gojo, but Rujo screams from the ground at them, claiming that instead of bickering up in the air, they should actually use their magic, as it was supposed to be used by helping the people here on ground who are struggling. Soon the witch cops start using their ribbons to yank horses and people up towards safety, while one of the cops cover the legs of the idiot boy who caused the landslide, while his father asks whether it can heal his boy. The witch replies that she can't, and will take the boy back to the Great Hall of the Witches where he will be treated. But the father grabs a hold of the witch, claiming that he saw them repairing their ribbons once they were burned and claims that they must be able to heal as well. But the witch tells the peasant to unhand him, or she will leave the boy as is and he is free to do as he pleases with him. The father immediately backs down and begs the witch to heal his son anyhow. East tells everyone to seal the area and get the outsiders to safety, and then begins his own investigation into the magic that caused this entire issue. He grabs the book that Coco drew in and confirms that the magical spell she drew is completely unremarkable and very basic, which is definitely incapable of destroying anything of this scale. But he is not satisfied yet. He grabs her arm and starts checking whether she drew anything on her hand, as the brimmed hats often use magic on their own body to enhance the spells, but he finds nothing but blotches of ink and calluses, indicating that Coco is indeed a beginner. Gojo moves in and claims that East has seen enough, but East is still not completely satisfied. He leaves with a threat claiming that they are going to open an investigation in this area, and if they find that Gojo and his apprentices are connected with this incident, they won't show them any mercy. Once the knights were gone, Gojo takes a deep sigh of relief, as he genuinely didn't know what would have happened if they didn't back off, and it came to a fight. He immediately apologizes to the girls, claiming that he shouldn't have left them alone, but at the same time, tells Coco and Agate that what they did today was very dangerous for the people around them. He claims that if any of them learnt the secret, all of them would have lost their memories to make sure none of them remember what magic is, and that's a horrible thing, as memories are what makes up a person, and without them a human would just become an empty husk. Both Agate and Coco apologize to him, and Agate thinks that because of this, she will probably not get a chance to appear for the second test anytime soon. But to her surprise, Gojo claims that even though it was dangerous, they managed to perform the spells without anyone learning the secret. So he tells Agate that he would arrange for her second test soon, and if she manages to clear that, she will be able to accompany him on outside jobs. Agate is beyond happy, and thanks Gojo, who makes her promise that she wouldn't use her magic in front of people before clearing the exam, and she agrees. Tia starts rambling about how she even wants to appear for the test, but Gojo claims that she is several steps behind and needs to work on the basics even more. Agate immediately wants Oddhead back and start practicing for her test, but Gojo can't simply leave the area as is, so with the help of Rujo and his special pen, which has the ability to burn inscriptions on top of anything, they manage to create a bridge made out of compact sand which is durable, and creates a way for the river to flow once again as it naturally did. While checking out to make sure that the water was flowing all right, he notices Coco's hat and ink vial on the ground, so he grabs them and hands it back to Coco, telling her to take better care of it. When Coco exclaims that her ink vial must be magical as the ink is back to full on its own, even though she used it today, Gojo immediately takes the ink from her hand to observe it, and immediately realizes that there is something wrong. He asks Coco whether this is the same ink vial that she got from the shop, and she nods her head. He immediately turns towards Rujo and tells him to take the girls back to the workshop, while he is taking Coco to the witch town nearby, as he never got her a pen that day. With that, he takes Coco with him as he needs to check something out with the shopkeeper, But when they land in the witch town near the shop, he realizes that the shop must be closed as the door and everything else have completely disappeared. Thankfully, the shopkeeper's apprentice was coming back from an errand and notices Gojo. So he immediately puts a handle on the wall, and it transforms into the door once again, letting them enter inside. Coco notices that the inside of the shop looks completely changed, and the boy replies that different doorknobs enter into different rooms, and that's why the layout looks different. The boy tells Gojo that his grandfather is on the 3rd floor, but stop Coco from following him, claiming that she should come with him as she has a cut on her leg, and he will disinfect it and make sure it's clean. Coco is amazed to see so many beautiful vials and powders and starts asking all sorts of questions about them, while the boy replies that they are used to create different inks and alter their effect. Meanwhile, Gojo reaches the 3rd floor and finds the shopkeeper hard at work, still trying to decipher what kind of ink was being used on the tiles that they recovered the last time they were here. He tells Gojo that he hasn't yet figured out what combination was used when Gojo pulls out the vial of ink and hands it over to him. The shopkeeper immediately starts observing it, and replies excitedly that the color and the texture of this ink matches the ink used on the tiles near perfectly. Just then he notices that the vial belongs to his own shop and gets confused. Gojo, however, immediately grabs the vial and starts drawing a magical seal on a parchment, while the shopkeeper tries to stop him, claiming that it could be dangerous. Back on the ground floor, Coco asks the boy all about the different dyes, and he explains the names and the uses. Some are used to increase the area of effect, some are used to alter the timing of the activation, some cause the casting seal to disappear after a while, and others change the way it actually behaves. Coco is beyond happy to be in a place that seems too magical to her, and claims that she wishes that she could stay here forever, which confuses the boy as no witch would want to be just a stationer. Coco spots a bright red powder on the top shelf and asks the boy what that is. The boy can't really see it, so she grabs a ladder and gets on top of it. Just then a bright light fills the room, completely caused by a magic spell used above them, which causes everything to fall on the ground. Coco is relieved that none of the jars are broken, but the boy is horrified, claiming that all the labels are mixed up now. Coco claims that they can simply replace the labels and starts asking which colored powder does what. But the boy screams at her that he doesn't know, as he only remembered them by where they were placed on the shelf. He then simply hands her the hat and tells her to leave for now, as there is nothing she could do. Back on the top floor, the shopkeeper gets up from the floor and rushes towards Gojo, who was on the ground as well, telling him that he should have listened. The shopkeeper is surprised that such a small spell could create such a massive blowback, but Gojo realized that this vial is a twinned bottle. One of the brimmed hats must have added a small seal inside of the vial which connects it to a different vial, and they can simply add some additives inside this ink to cause unimaginable damage to the user and the surrounding area. He realizes that Coco used the same ink to cast the magic spell, and that's why it created so much destruction. But now he has a link to the brimmed hats at last. The shopkeeper starts freaking out, claiming that this is above his pay grade and he must inform the Great Hall. But Gojo tells him not to utter a single word about this to anyone. The shopkeeper starts backing off, asking Gojo what the hell is he planning to do. And when Gojo realizes that the shopkeeper might not agree with his plans, he simply uses his spell to remove the memory of Gojo coming in with the vial entirely. By the time evening comes, he comes out of the shop alongside Coco and hands her a bag filled with new ink and other things, claiming that he accidentally bought her some very expensive ink, so instead he got this for her. Coco is happy, while Gojo grabs her in his arms, promising that he will make sure that no one hurts her as long as she is his apprentice. A couple days pass by and Coco is now getting trained by Gojo, who wants her to get better at magic and learn all the basics as soon as possible. They start with a simple summoning spell, which basically requires you to create a seal of wind magic and hold it in the direction of the object you want to pull, and that should do the job. Coco holds the seal in her hand and aims it towards an apple tree on a hillock. But instead of an apple, the entire small tree gets uprooted from the ground and flies towards them at a great speed, only to crash in Gojo, taking him down to the ground. Coco immediately starts apologizing for the mistake, while Gojo tells her not to worry about it and gets up dusting himself, claiming that the seal that she made this time is a little bigger than it should be. Coco pulls out the last seal she made on a different paper, which was a bit too small and produced a weak magical wind that only made the apples wobble instead of breaking them free from the tree. Tia is also there, and she suggests that maybe Coco should try angling the spell in the magic circle a little so that instead of just pulling it straight, The magic twists the apple a little, which might make it easier to break. Gojo agrees, claiming that the alteration might just work if done properly. He claims that the infinite ways of altering a magical spell is what makes it so modular and fit for different use case scenarios. Tia jumps up happily, repeating what Gojo told her, claiming that the purpose of repeating a lesson is trial and error. That's the hidden technique of getting better at something. You try a spell, which doesn't work, and figure out why it didn't work. Then you try it again, and if it works, you figure out why it worked. Gojo plants the tree back into the ground once more so it can grow bigger and stronger, while claiming that Tia is right and that she would become a great teacher one day. That really makes Tia blush, as she can't wait to become a master herself. But just as usual, Agate can't prevent herself from being a buzzkill. So she shows off her skills by perfectly plucking out a single apple from the tree that flies towards her, and she catches it lazily in her hand, before claiming that Tia shouldn't be teaching other people what to do, when she herself has so many shortcomings. She claims that it would be much better if she works on her own magic and get better instead of teaching others. Tia, alongside Rich, immediately runs up to Agate, as she begs Agate to show her how to use this magic perfectly. A little while later, they all sit down to eat some of the sweet and juicy apples, when Coco asks Gojo whether there are more tests apart from the test of consent that needs to be cleared in the data ranges before anyone can become an apprentice. The thought about tests immediately sours Rich's mood, who claims that there are 5 of these useless tests that don't matter at all and are just there to torture the kids. Gojo laughs, claiming that magic was created to bring joy to the life of people, and it wouldn't make sense if the users who learn magic suffered through the exams. That's why the wise witches of the old decided to create the tests in such a way that the apprentice would want to take it themselves, instead of someone forcing it on them. He claims that the entire series of tests is designed to be an adventure. The first test is to get the consent from the data ranges. After that is the test of sincerity, where you have to clear an area alongside your master. Following that is the test of worth, where you have to find a key and prove yourself of being worthy to wield magic. The fourth test is called the Goodwill of His Grace, and the fifth one known as the test of the teacher, after which you would be capable of using magic in any scenario. This is known as the Pentacle of Proving. With each test you pass, you will be able to do more with your magic, and after passing through the fourth test, you would be considered a fully fledged wizard who could use magic on his own without any supervision. After the third test, you are allowed to give the trial for the Tower of Tomes, where all the books in history are hidden. The fifth test is only for those wizards who want to take their own apprentices, so they don't have to worry about that until they graduate. Tia immediately starts dreaming, claiming that she always thinks about what she would do after she graduates, and all she wants to do is to go to faraway places and help everyone she can so that they thank her, and she can thank them back for thanking her. She also really wants a twin-pointed hat instead of the traditional one, and Gojo nods, claiming that people do get to choose their own hats once they pass out. Rich, on the other hand, still doesn't find the tests any better than before, and gets up claiming that she still hates them, as she doesn't like when people tell her to draw spells that she doesn't want to draw. Agate tells her that if she only draws the spells that she wants to draw, then she will never learn anything new. But Rich simply claims that if being an adult means that she has to do things that she doesn't like, then she would rather stay as is. With that, Rich leaves, while Agate talks about how she can't wait to take the tests and grow up as soon as possible so she can become a librarian at the Tower of Tomes. Tia comes near Coco and whispers in her ears that Agate's family is descended from the 3 wise witches that laid the foundation of modern witchcraft, and every single generation has had a librarian. That's why Agate wants to prove herself as worthy and become one herself. Tia asks Coco what she wants to do, but Coco looks down, claiming that she hasn't had a traditional witch upbringing, and because of that her path is basically laid out already. For now, all she wants to do is slowly increase the number of spells she can cast, and asks Tia if she could help her. Gojo smiles from afar, watching his apprentices who are so different from each other and yet so same. That night, when Coco goes to sleep, she ends up drifting into a nightmare where she finds herself alone in the darkness. But while looking around, she suddenly spots her mother, lovely as the last day she saw her. Coco immediately ran up to her and hugged her with all her might, apologizing for the mistake she made, which petrified her, while hoping that this dream never ends. But gods are cruel, and her mother turns into stone right in front of her all over again. She starts running away into the darkness screaming for help, while the voices of people telling her that she is a worthless waste of space echo in her head. She continues running and finds herself trapped in a glass vial with the brimmed hat looking down on her, claiming that she is the reason that the world will collapse, and tosses her back into an abyss. That was the moment when she wakes up tangled in her bedsheet soaked in sweat as she breathes hard, trying to figure out what's real and what's not. She hugs her furry pet and wonders whether these nightmares will ever end. And she already knows that they won't. She decides to get up and moves to her desk and starts scribbling on the parchment, trying to practice her spells when Agate walks in as well. Surprised to see her awake at night, Coco tells her that she isn't sleepy and would rather practice some, and returns back to her scribbles while wondering how many times will she have to practice these spells before she becomes capable enough to save her mother. Meanwhile, down on the lower floor, Gojo grabs some of his stuff and creates a magical wall all around him to isolate himself from the others, while he finally takes out the vial with the magical ink inside and grabs it with both hands as if it was the hand of a long-lost lover. He thinks about how there were some witches that processed the skills to heal any diseases, and they didn't agree with the wise one's decision to forbid any spell used on the body. They claimed that banning the use of spells on someone's body will reduce the efficacy of the spells, but the wise ones declined. The healing mages started using their own magical twin vials, which they connected with one other so they can use special ink and continue doing the magic that they wanted. But when the wise ones removed the memories of those mages, the art was completely lost. Now, ironically, only the brimmed hats could make use of the twin vials, and this is the closest he has come to discovering their secret and a way to reach them. He decides that the ink is too dangerous to use right now, as he doesn't know what kind of effects it will have. So all he is interested in is to remove the magical medallion inside the vial, which converts it into a twin vial. He gets a tweezer and starts to gently yank out the medallion when suddenly things go south. A lightning spell gets activated inside the vial and shoots at Gojo, who barely manages to use an earth-bending spell to save himself. But that wasn't enough. Suddenly, the entire vial starts overflowing with a very strong current of water, which completely fills the little silo that he created, completely drowning him, and Gojo realizes that he made a mistake. He didn't realize that he can't use magic underwater, which leaves him completely defenseless, while a lightning bolt shocks the water, and this time Gojo had no way of safeguarding himself. The water starts disappearing inside the vial once again, and Gojo is dropped to the ground stunned, and when he looks up, he spots a brimmed hat looking down at him eerily. The brimmed hat casually grabs the vial from the ground, and while Gojo tries to reach for the vial, the brimmed hat destroys the vial in her hands, shattering it completely before disappearing in an instant, leaving Gojo stunned on the ground, as he doesn't want to believe that he just lost his golden opportunity to understand the brimmed hats and the magic that they use. The next morning, both Gojo and Coco are tired and yawning at the breakfast table, while Agate tells Coco that she needs rest as she is pulling all-nighters to train herself. Gojo again started to drift off to sleep, so he decides to make some tea. But when he grabs the kettle, it falls down to the ground and shatters. He realizes that his fingers are still numb from the lightning strike yesterday, so she tells the girls to go and have fun while he goes out and picks some more leaves for the tea. Coco in the meantime pulls Agate aside and hands her the shoes that she borrowed so long ago. Agate is confused and realizes that this is what's keeping Coco up at night. Coco claims that it's not as good as it was before, but she tried her best. Agate doesn't understand Coco, as she forced Coco to take the exam, and yet Coco didn't utter a single word about it to Gojo. Coco claims that yes, she forced Coco into the first test, but it was Coco's choice to follow through, and without that push, she might have never done that. Before she could say anything else though, Coco collapses on the floor and Agate realizes that she is burning up. She immediately rushes to find Gojo and runs into him while he was picking leaves. They both fall down the hillock while Gojo quickly uses his own magic to regain control. Agate claims that Coco is sick, so Gojo quickly heads back with her and picks Coco up before returning to the island town of witches to find a hospital. He arrives in the town and realizes that he doesn't know the area too well, but thankfully runs into the shopkeeper's grandson Tar, who knows the way to the nearest hospital, so they both rush Coco there and the doctors immediately take over. Gojo thanks Tar for his assist while Tar looks up at him, claiming that he has a question regarding his last visit with Coco when they came to the shop, and Gojo goes silent. Gojo doesn't reply immediately and claims that he doesn't know what Tar is talking about and tells him to ask him any questions he wants about magic, and he would love to answer them as he likes to talk about magic with people. Tar backs off a little as he doesn't want to make it awkward since Gojo is clearly avoiding his questions, and thankfully just then, The nurse with an insane waist walks over and asks them to come inside to see the patient. They find Coco sleeping with a cold towel placed on her head for the fever. The nurse claims that Coco is fine otherwise, and the high fever was the result of cold, sleepless nights and exhaustion. She claims that with proper rest, Coco will recover fully, and there should be no long-term consequences. Gojo lets out a sigh of relief as the nurse claims that she would keep Coco inside the hospital under observation just in case, and Gojo thanks her for the help. The nurse walks out of the room slowly, while muttering that she has no idea what kind of training these witches put themselves through, but the girl is still a child and the adults around her should be more careful and attentive about her health. Gojo thinks about what the nurse said, and realizes that she is correct as he hasn't been able to give the kids the attention that they require lately and apologizes to Coco for his mistake. He takes out a parchment and draws a water sigil before blowing on it softly. The water immediately dissipates in the air, turning the room slightly colder, which immediately relieves Coco a little, who sleeps more easily after that. Tar seems confused and asks Gojo why the hell would she overwork herself to the point of collapse. But Gojo replies that sometimes people who are new in a world try to overcome their shortcomings by overcompensating for it. Even though Coco might look happy and cheerful on the outside, they have no idea what kind of guilt and insecurities she is dealing with every day. Tar is a little surprised by that admission and immediately wonders whether Coco is the girl who is the outsider that everyone is talking about recently. Gojo turns to him and acknowledges that he heard Tar's question about the light in the shop, but claims that they should talk about it some other day as this is not the best time. Tar nods his head, and just then the bell sounds in the area, and he excuses himself to return back to the shop. Tar quickly runs to the bank where the last ferry to the witch town is about to leave. The guard, however, stops him and asks who the hell is he, since the ferry is only reserved for witches. Tar claims that he is a witch as well, but the guard asks him to show his hat as a proof because lots of kids nowadays try to sneak onto the ferry to see the town of witches with their own eyes. Tar immediately goes in to check in his side bag, but to his horror, the hat is missing. He realizes that he must have dropped it somewhere and must retrieve it as soon as possible if he wants to return back to the shop. He quickly starts running back, retracing his steps to find the hat, while Gojo sits by Coco while a doctor walks in and tells him not to worry as everything seems to be going as planned and she should feel fully rejuvenated by tomorrow. He also marvels at Gojo's magic, which has made the room nice and cool, claiming that magic is amazing. Gojo replies that the doctors are the real magicians, but the doctor replies that regardless, it would be really cool if they can learn some of these spells that could make the treatment that much easier. Just then, a man bursts into the room shouting that the nearby bar has caught fire and he needs a doctor there as soon as possible, since there are many people injured with burns all over their bodies. Just then, he spots the water droplets floating in the air, and he realizes that Gojo must be a witch. He immediately grabs Gojo, claiming that they need a witch who could use magic to stop the fire, but Gojo claims that he can't leave right now as he is looking after one of the patients. But thankfully, Coco wakes up just at the nick of the moment and tells Gojo that he should go as this is the job of the witches to help the people in need. Gojo leaves with the rest of the people and runs towards the bar, crossing by Tar, who is still looking for his hat. Tar enters the hospital,
hands, girl. Oh yeah. I heard that you addicted to them hands now, girl. Go ahead with your sticky ass. Go ahead, go ahead. Shawty, give me a reason. You know that I'm